So today on our video series, we have Michelle, who is the founder of Threads Creative. And Michelle, please introduce yourself to our audience and share a little bit about your extensive background in retail in the British High Street.
Hi, thank you for introducing me. So my name is Michelle and I'm founder of Threads Creatives. I have over 25 years experience working in retail in the UK, US and Asia. I established Threads Creatives about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. I primarily look after three divisions within the business. So we have strategy pillar, creative pillar and change management. My background is working for some of the, I guess, well-known, beloved retailers before I set up that, such as Bowden, Marks and Spencers, Georgia Asda. Which led me to set up Threads Creative to support small and large businesses through their transition strategies and change management.
Amazing. So the British retail industry is really well known for its high street. And I know, and like you said, you've kind of touched on many of the major brands that are part of the makeup of people's shopping experience, whether it's um, clothes or things for the home or even on the food side. So I'm going to dive straight into um, change management because it seems like it's one of the opportunities that you saw when you were setting up your own business.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just define change management for us and also then kind of share with us when you see it's actually applied?
So from my perspective, I think sometimes people think change management is a scary thing and it might be linked with redundancies or a big structural change. But from my
Yeah,
perspective, I see it as a real positive. And the way I view it is taking business strategy or direction and making sure it's implemented across the whole team and they can all be on board to deliver the same vision. So it really is
yeah,
about the change that needs to happen for a new vision or new strategy within a business. So it's not
yeah,
necessarily a negative thing or should be viewed that way. It's really about aligning the whole company on what the next right stage is for that business. And quite often it's a growth stage, which is a positive thing. Um,
yeah,
so I think your second part was where I see brands sort of needing to apply that theory. And quite often it's linked with a new process or system. So people often think we're having a new tech system, there needs to be change management, which is one side of it. But the change
yeah,
management that I really work in looks at the new direction. So we might be talking about a new management structure or a new product launch or an exciting new development for a business. And with that,
yeah,
often comes the need for change because the business might not be used to working in that way or have experience with that path. So it's
yeah,
really supporting them after having set the strategy, how they can then deliver that change for the business. And what's super important are the people in the business who have to deliver this change or this new direction or really get on
yeah.
board with this process. So for me, that's really what change management encompasses. It's about some new vision or implementing the vision and the strategy for the whole team.
Yeah. Can you just expand a little bit on the product side? So, to me, it makes sense that if you're implementing a new strategy or vision, that feels like I don't know, a much larger holistic initiative for a company.
Yeah.
But can you explain what you mean by product, a new product, and how that also would um, trigger something,
Yeah.
change management to then be implemented or thought
Yeah.
about in the company?
Yeah, I've got a great example. I was working with a company who were launching the Willie Morris at Home brand, and I established that brand, set it up for them. Now, they had a lot of experience with B2B, but not with
Yeah,
B2C in business. So the front end process of range creation, print design concept was all very familiar with them and very easy for me to have my
yeah,
input in this new category. But once we'd established that, and we wanted to move this product launch through its journey into supplier development, and then into what does the launch strategy look like, what does the website look like, what do those platforms. It really became apparent that there was certain elements of that pipeline missing within the business because they'd never had to do that before to communicate a new brand product launch to
Yeah.
customers. So it was really about not only taking the current team in place on that journey, but then actually identifying there was gaps in the team, and where we needed
Right.
to add additional resource and what that looked like to line up for a successful launch. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's super important with new product launches.
And how far in advance or when did you get involved with this part of change management? How early on do you think brands should think about this?
Oh gosh, it's always the last thing that's thought of, but quite often needs to be one of the first.
Yeah.
I think in my experience from working with big brands at Kath doing it through my career, I've done it a few times. Um, it's usually brought on board when there's been a thing identified that needs to be inputted into the team, and then we need someone to manage that process. Then quite
Yeah.
often it's taking key members of staff from each division to create a team to work on that change management, work on that implementation. So all of those things take
Yeah.
such a long time. First, you've got to get people to agree and sign up and do it on top of their day job. Then you need someone to manage the
Yeah.
process. And then once you've got the senior people on board, it's then what do those, we would call them super users or people within the team who can then
Yeah.
be part of that journey and on board that for the rest of the team beneath them. So
Yeah.
it's quite, depending on the size of the company, it can be quite a long process. Um, in larger companies. In smaller companies, it's often the case where they might not have identified they need change management. So they might have
Yeah.
identified they need a new strategy or a new direction, or they're feeling overwhelmed. And then when actually I've gone into work with businesses, I realized
Yeah.
quite quickly there's frustrations within the disciplines because one team are relying on another to do something and they haven't communicated that and they don't know the timelines for it. And I think a lot of change management then dissolves a lot of that and you end up with a
Yeah.
bit of a more harmonious workplace. So I hate to say it's about joining creative strategy and process together because often people don't like the word process, but I think that's is what it is. It's making a seamless process work for
Yeah.
creatives as well as the more kind of logical process driven people.
Yeah. And do you find that most companies will bring in a third party to oversee change management, or do you see that there are companies who do have this as kind of a core expertise in-house?
I honestly haven't met with anyone who has it as a core expertise. I do feel like it's an additional thing that is brought in. They may have functions within HR who offer certain training and things around certain elements of it. And
Yeah.
again, you could get lucky with some of the senior team being really experienced in change management, having delivered it themselves
Yeah.
in the current company. But what I find is people are often very busy with their day job. So if you then throw a project at them, they have to be really excited
Yeah.
about it to then find time to manage that, and especially across disciplines. So yeah, it can be a role that someone takes on as a secondment to their main role. But in my
Yeah.
experience, I usually find there's someone coming in from externally to facilitate, and then you're sort of encouraging the senior team to be part of the journey, and ultimately they're the ones who have to implement it with their teams.
Yeah. And do you find change management or your application of change management is also like, do you link it to companies that have a culture of experimentation or innovation?
Yeah, I think it's not always linked hand in hand, but I think people who are more willing to look at change management are companies that have got flexibility and agility built into their company and their buying process.
Yeah.
What I find is that if you are able to give team members ownership of decision making, then you can
Yeah.
move on quickly and sort of this test and learn culture. And you might have heard of the term like fail fast. Don't be afraid to test and
Yeah.
learn. If you do something short and sharp and quick, it's not going to be a huge cost. And then you
Yeah.
can really understand what the wins are to then implement things. Because quite often, when you work with companies with change management, like I said, it's usually a large cash investment because it's not the change management piece, it's the thing that they're trying to implement. So it's
Yeah.
usually a new software system or new process
Yeah.
or new direction. And that part has been very costly. So I
Yeah.
think from my perspective, where it works the best is when it's actually a brand or a retailer trying to change their direction and achieve something different. You can come in
Yeah.
and quite implement that change management and that new, it's about a new way of thinking quite often for colleagues and
Yeah.
teams to almost test and learn whatever the thing is whilst they've got success with current products, so it can then learn what the next big thing is coming through the pipeline.
Yeah. Interesting. And then from a I guess from change management in terms of when you're doing this project for a company,
Mm-hmm.
can you just explain a little bit more about? It sounds like it is very process driven, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
helping different teams speak to each other, making sure deliverables are aligned. Can you also talk a little bit about maybe the work that you do in terms of just, I guess like the attitudes or
Mm-hmm.
changing perspectives maybe that are required within organizations?
Yeah, I think coming in from an outside perspective, it's great if they trust that you've got a skill set and knowledge and you can apply something different and a fresh perspective.
Yeah,
There's obviously different personalities react in different ways. There's always a fear of change, and some people have that. There's other people who
yeah,
have a real embracing of change and are excited for the next big thing. Um,
yeah,
and then there's people, sort of the worriers, who are thinking, what does it mean for me? They may have heard change management linked with redundancy, so there's a fear of what does this mean for my role and what could that look like. And I think
yeah,
it's really about addressing people of what the positive things are about this change that we're discussing. And yes, it's
yeah,
process driven, but for me, it's not. It's all about the people, because the people have to deliver change. They have to be on board with the vision. They have to be on board with the journey. The process
yeah,
is just the path to get there. If we can't
yeah,
align the people and the thinking, it's never going to happen. So I think with change management, people get so fixated on it being a new process that they forget
yeah,
that that's just a stepping stone. That's actually not the important bit. So the people who love to create pipelines and flow charts and workflows, and they're all handy,
yeah,
but ultimately you can do hundreds of those. But if no one's on board with what's happening in the stages, it's never going to happen. So they're just going to take
yeah,
it away and put it in their drawer and close the drawer. So it's really about connecting with the people, understanding their concerns, and sharing how
yeah,
it's going to be better for them and how it's going to take away confusion, take away duplication, and just make it a more seamless process, which is
yeah.
mostly what I kind of focus on.
Okay. And then last question, just to summarize change management.
Mm-hmm.
If you had almost like a tagline or,
Oh,
I don't know, a business card that could trigger in anyone's head at a company that I need to think about change management as I do this project or as I launch this product, what would that question or that tagline be?
I think mine would be something along the lines of change management isn't about the process, it's about the people.
I like
Yeah.
that. Okay,
Put me on the spot
super.
there.
I know. um, And then my last question that we like to end off with everybody is if you can share with us, with our audience, the best customer experience that you've had.
Um, I think a recent one, which is the one that pops into my head because it just happened a few months ago. We It's actually about John Lewis, who I do sort of rate for customer service anyhow, so it's good
Yeah,
it's about that. I said to my husband, "Can you just?" It's one of our son's birthdays, and they wanted a telescope. And I said, "Oh, while you're out, can you just nip in John Lewis and grab one? They'll have one." And he said, "Oh,
yeah,
I've been in, they don't have it, I can't find it." And I thought, it's ridiculous, they must have. So instead of doing my research, I literally walked into John Lewis when I was next in the store. And I
yeah,
went up to where I thought it was, the escalator, and I just stood in the sort of the foyer bit,
yeah,
stood looking confused, thinking, right, where would it be? Literally didn't ask anyone, didn't say anything. I just came up the escalator and looked confused. A colleague
yeah,
came straight over to me and said, "Do you need a hand with something?" I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for a telescope for my son, but I'm not sure if it's going to be up here in toys or down in gadgets." Or
yeah,
let me just have a look. Whipped out some device, searched out where it could be, spoke to someone. There was three possible locations. Rang the first one. I was like, "Yep, come with me." Took me to the toy department. There it is, pointing on the shelf exactly where it was. Picked it up, was
yeah,
exactly what I needed to be, the price point I wanted it to be at. And I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
perfect, thanks." So for me, that was fantastic because I didn't even know I needed that customer service. I just thought I'll go in, it'd be really easy. And then
Yeah.
obviously my husband couldn't find it. I went in and thought, hang
Yeah.
on a minute, it might be down with the guy tech gadgets and not up here on the kids' floor. So I literally just had that look of overwhelm. Someone in
Yeah.
store spotted me and thought, I've got to help that woman. And it
Yeah.
was just so quick and easy. And the whole point of me, I wanted to get in and out because I was rushing.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
experience didn't make it longer. It just made it much quicker for me. So I didn't have to spend half an hour searching each floor looking for it. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
really pleased with that unexpected customer service that I didn't know I
Yeah.
needed.
Amazing. I love it. I'm seeing this theme
Yeah,
of customer service where people can just like anticipate our needs and read us
exactly.
without
Yeah,
us even realizing, like you said, what you needed.
yeah, it was good.
Amazing. Well, Michelle, I really appreciate your time and you sharing your insights on on change management and your customer service experience with us. And yeah, thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to the next one. Have a
You're
great afternoon.
welcome. Great, thank you. You too.